Hey guys, it's me again, Lady Hawk. So I have another story to bring to you guys. Now, I had warned you guys before when we first started this whole casting and streaming that I had a couple stories that were very descriptive, very heart-wrenching. So, this story is one of them. I get emotional talking about this story, but I guess the reason why I want to make sure that the story gets out is because in the news we see a lot about children not getting the help they need, children end up coming up missing, children are hurt by people that are supposed to protect them, children that the system fails. And this story does. This story has all of it. This story breaks my heart, makes me sick to my stomach. I don't understand how people, especially a parent, can harm a child, and especially to the extent that this child had to go through. Like I said, it can be very disturbing, and some of the photos I will show you are not very kind. So I'm warning you now. And after researching this, I looked at my husband and wanted to cry. I had to actually stop. I researched it, and I couldn't even think about taking my notes and processing them like I usually do and everything. I had to take a break. As a mother myself, I just don't get it. But let's go ahead and get this through, and I will try not to be emotional, guys. I can't promise nothing. Sorry, my dog's licking me as we're talking. Stop. This story is about Adrian Jones. Now, Adrian Jones was a lively, curious, sweet, football-loving little 7-year-old boy who had his whole life ahead of him. But it was taken from him way too early. And this child did not just get murdered. He had to endure months, weeks, years of abuse, torture, and also being failed by people that were by so many different people that were supposed to love him, people that are meant to be there to protect you. And it was all in the hands of two people, like I said, who were supposed to love him and protect him no matter what. His father, Michael Jones, and his stepmother, Heather Jones. Now, before we discuss these two sick monsters, let's start at the beginning, okay? Little Adrian was born May 15th, 2008 to his parents, Michael Jones and Deanna Pierce, in Lawrence, Kansas. Now, Diana was not a very fit mother. She was constantly going out drinking all night and leaving her children unattended at home. So when it came down to it, when Michael finally started leaving his wife because he was having it, he started leaving Diana for his now wife because he was having an affair with Heather. He ended up getting custody of all three of their children by DCF in 2012. So, and if you don't know, DCF is the Department of Children and Family. Now, it was only 3 months, guys, after Michael had taken custody of Adrian, calls were coming in like crazy on the abuse hotlines. Reports stating that there were guns everywhere in the house that were accessible to children. That Heather was doing drugs, even selling meth out of the house. Like, literally having drug dealers and everything out of the house. Sorry, my husband's dancing over there. Other reports stated that the kids were showing signs of starvation, weight loss, and physical injuries. One report even stated that Adrian was beaten and choked, and that he had been spanked so hard, guys. And I don't know if it was with a hand or if it was with an object, but spanked so hard that his little bottom, his little area was bleeding. Like, this poor baby, like, how? But after all these reports, you would think that someone would have stepped in to investigate or protect this child. Instead, the family decided to move to Missouri in a single-story home on 15 acres of land. And they thought that would stop the reports, maybe kind of give them a little bit of leniency. But no, it did not stop the reports. Finally, in 2013, Missouri Children's Division and a police officer went and talked to Adrian. During this interview, Adrian confided in the officer and the social worker saying, "Daddy kicks me. He keeps hitting me in the head and punches me in the stomach, and Mom keeps pulling my ears, and it really hurts." Adrian even stated they always lock me in my room. I have to sleep without a pillow and a blanket. In one report, Adrian even said that his own father, had kicked him so hard in the back of his head that a little bone came out. Like, I don't know what bone that would have been, but coming from a sweet little boy like that, like, it sent shivers up my spine. It would tear at anybody's heartstrings. But everything Adrian told the social worker and officer was nowhere close to the actual horrors that this little boy had to endure every day. Adrian was even examined by medical staff and investigators during this interview. And even though that Michael and Heather refused to cooperate with investigation, and even with Michael and Heather even stating that Adrian suffered from disruptive behavior and parent-child relationship problems, that he was just a really problematic child at his age. They even said that they would say that he would wet the bed regularly, that he stole and hoarded food. But if they were starving him, of course he's going to steal and hoard food, because he doesn't know when the next time he's going to be fed. But they also said that the reason why he looked the way he did was because he picked up sores and he was known to light fires. Which, even if this young boy was doing all these things, these are classic signs of a child being abused or neglected that is lashing out, needing attention, trying to get that attention to get help. Michael and Heather would even go as far as begging them to remove Adrian from the house. But even with all of this, Adrian was released back into their care again. And the only thing that was provided was in-home services. Now, this is where like a social worker will come in and see how everything's going, blah, blah, blah. That never happened. Nobody ever came and did their checks. Because then in 2014, Michael, Adrian's father, contacted Adrian's mother, Diana, and said that Adrian, who is 6 years old at this time, 6 years old, said that he had put Adrian into a psychiatric hospital because Adrian had turned into a pedophile and was showing sexual predator tendencies. He even stated that nobody could go see him. Nobody was allowed to visit him because it would interfere with his treatment. And then after that, he didn't give her time to say anything, didn't give nothing. Just hung up. Nothing else was said. Nothing. I mean, who on earth would believe, especially the mother of a child, would believe that a little 6-year-old boy who has never shown any kinds of signs of psychiatric issues or anything in those areas, that all of a sudden would have these kind of issues? Like, it doesn't, not for 1 second do I believe this. I'm sorry, I don't. But after I looked more into this claim, I was able to find that in 2014, Adrian was checked into a residential treatment center in Grandview, Missouri. This is where he was diagnosed with PTSD. But it said nothing about sexual anything. It didn't say anything about that. But he did suffer from PTSD. It did say that he was there for several months. But then on September 4th, 2014, he was discharged. And guess what, guys? He was discharged to his father, Michael, and stepmother, Heather. Now, Michael and Heather were told that they had to follow an aftercare plan. This would include that he needed to be enrolled in an actual school because all the children were homeschooled. All the kids were homeschooled. He had to be actually enrolled into a normal school. And he needed to attend therapy, which anybody with PTSD, which I suffer from PTSD, like, they know that you need to go to therapy. They just entrusted them to follow these after orders. But obviously, and the reason I say that they trusted him was because afterwards there was no follow-up. Nobody made sure that these things were actually going on. And then just within 1 month of all of this, Heather emailed Adrian's therapist at the treatment center stating that Adrian was getting too much to deal with all over again. Like, once again, no one followed up on this claim. And just 1 year later, little Adrian gained his wings. Like, everybody failed this kid so much. Then everything would change, though. Everything would come to light. On Thanksgiving of 2015, a 911 operator had received a call from a woman claiming that her husband, while she was holding her youngest daughter, was shot at, that her husband had shot at her. This woman was Heather Jones. Now, when the police arrived, they thought they were just responding to a domestic disturbance situation. But what they found out and would uncover that day and within several months would forever stay in their minds and affect all the officers. When the police arrived, Heather seemed to just unravel and stated that they needed to check the pig pen for bones. When the investigators went through the pen, they did find human remains. And after DNA testing, they found that the remains were of sweet little 7-year-old Adrian Jones. Immediately, they took Heather and Michael into custody. Now, during the interrogation of Heather, this woman, if you can even call her a woman, kept saying that Michael was the one to blame for Adrian's death. But they would soon find out that she was just as evil, if not more evil, than her husband. Because after Heather was arrested, she had contacted her landlord and asked her to go to her house and download her pictures off of her iCloud account. She would say that she just wanted pictures of her kids and everything like that. But what the landlord found was so sickening. In Heather's iCloud was hundreds of photos and videos of Adrian. And they were not sweet, smiling, happy, joyful, loving pictures. They were pictures and videos that were documented by their security cameras that were all over their house. At least 9 months worth of abuse and torture that Adrian went through. Some of the pictures that were released to the public were just awful, and I can't even describe it. I look at these photos and I'm just like, oh my Lanta, he was blindfolded, stripped, tied, and handcuffed to tables, and even an inversion table, which, if you don't know what an inversion table is, it's a therapeutic table that you strap yourself to, and it helps with lower back pain. Your legs just kind of dangle there, and it's supposed to help with your back pain. There were photos of Adrian's little swollen ankles, arms, and other limbs that were caused from being tied up too tight and for so long, like long periods of time. And this ended up causing muscular disfiguration. But it doesn't just end there, guys. Like, there were pictures of Adrian's little face severely bleeding and deeply cut. And they found out that this happened because he was bashed in the face with a broomstick. There were footages of him being forced to walk around the yard holding tiki torches, and videos of him standing all night in a nasty, gross swimming pool with water up to his neck. And this was in the frigid cold of January. Anybody in Missouri, Kansas, anywhere from the Midwest would understand. Like, January is very cold. Usually you get snow and frost and everything. Like, it's cold. This baby boy was forced to eat out of maggot-filled bowl, while his hands were tied behind his back and he was on his knees. So he literally had to eat like a dog. His face in the bowl that's filled with maggots. There was even a selfie of Heather standing in a bathroom, and I have it, standing in the bathroom in front of a mirror where there's plywood on the shower. Now, behind that plywood, Adrian was stripped naked and forced to stand in there for hours, guys. I mean, who does that? What kind of person could be that evil? In one photo, it even showed his lips all swollen and busted up, which later the investigators said happened from him trying to chew his way out of that plywood prison. They even tortured him by strapping him to objects such as cutting boards to where he couldn't bend over and his hands were always bound. Sometimes he even had a bar of soap in his mouth while a plate of food was sitting right in front of him and he was not allowed to eat it. He wasn't even allowed to touch it. It was as if they took pleasure, especially Heather, took pleasure in the torture and pain of the sweet child. Like, I'm sorry, I can't, like, she even had a picture, guys, that was labeled "the boy." Now, later on, this was explained by the other children in the house. Yes, there was other children in the house, little girls, that were very well taken care of. They were very well taken care of, but they were questioned about it, and they said that Adrian was never called by his name. He was called the boy. So, after uncovering all of this, the landlord immediately reported it and turned it in to the investigators. During the questionnaires of the children, they gave light about what had happened. And they said that in the fall of 2015, when Adrian died, he was left alone by himself. This little boy was left alone in the shower, that plywood shower, for days to starve to death. One child even said that they could hear him begging for help and saying, "I'm going to die." The sweet baby knew he was going to die. And Heather, all she did was yell, "Suck it up." Like, he died alone. Nobody holding him, nobody loving him, starving. My stomach is just sick. Like, investigators would also say that they found out not only did they torture this baby in life, but they also tortured him after his death. He was treated like nothing, guys, like absolute nothing. He was left in that shower where he died for a whole 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, Adrian was in the shower deceased. Michael decided that he was going to purchase some pigs, and he placed them in a pen, and then he starved the pigs until nobody in the house could take the smell of Adrian's decaying body anymore. And so they took his little body, his lifeless little body, and put it in the pig pen and fed him to the pigs. Along with all those gruesome pictures and videos, Heather even took it one step further. Investigators would find that she had sent some of the photos and shared some of the stories to multiple people on her Facebook. There was a post on December 25th, 2014, where Heather said that she wanted to simulate a episode of The Walking Dead where the character ends up shooting a child in the back of the head. They even found a message to an unknown person saying, just strap the boy to my inversion table with handcuffs and ace bandages and put him downstairs. The hubby wants some booty, and I ain't had none in over a week. She then signed off so cheerfully, like it was nothing, by saying, love y'all, nighty night. Then around the time that Adrian passed away, she posted, have to feed some pigs a body. Like, what the crap? And no one reported anything about this from her social media. It's sickening that nobody reported any of this. They also found evidence that Michael and Heather were planning on moving to Utah after Adrian's death so they could start a brand new life and no one would ever know about Adrian. Now, with all this evidence stacked against Heather and Michael, there was no doubt how sick of monsters these people were. And then in March, Michael pled guilty after Heather had already been sentenced and was in the Topeka, Kansas prison for women. But during Michael's trial, he refused to look at Adrian's grandmother, older sister, or Adrian's mother. Some of the officers who testified against Michael stated it was the worst things they had ever seen. And many officers had to try and hold their composure while on the stand. I couldn't imagine having seen that and have to relive that. Now, when it was time for the family to make their statements to Michael, for the family impact statements, he was cold, showed no remorse. Even while Adrian's older sister, Kiki Doctor, said in her impact statement stating like he was like a father figure to her and that she was actually terrified of him because of the way he had treated her mom. Now, when Adrian's mother took the stand, she looked right at Michael, and even though she's not the best mom out there, she had a point and looked right at Michael and said, you failed as a father. Heather and Michael were both sentenced to a minimum of 25 years to life without a chance of parole. Heather had even tried to make one more attempt to come off innocent by making a post on her Facebook while waiting for her trial date saying, and I quote, I took responsibility for the children. Yes, I loved them and cared for them, but I am only one person. And there was no controlling or getting away from that man when he was cycling. He had cameras everywhere in my home, all the rooms and even outside. She would even start talking about a time that Michael was stopped by police and pulled over, stating that when they were pulled over with their 6 girls, he had loaded assault rifles, loaded handguns, all his drugs, and he had looked at her and promised that he was going to kill everyone that day and end it all. She then stated, I am broken for Adrian and my girls. I'm sorry, do what? You're broken for Adrian and your girls? She really seems broken up in her mugshot with that slight little grin. Like, she shows no remorse. And she's the one that did this. She was really broken up while she was torturing and allowing a little boy in her care to die due to the neglect and abuse she caused. Now, guys, with all of this, something good did come out of this horrible situation. Adrian's mother and sister Kiki and his mother started filing wrongful death lawsuits on both Kansas and Missouri for not doing all they could to protect little Adrian. Now, the Missouri court ruled that the social workers were not liable for anything that had happened and didn't charge anyone with any kind of negligence, which I'm sorry. Those social workers knew things were going on. They had reports. They had every right to do something, and nothing was ever done. It could have taken just one person to step up and be that voice that was needed to save an innocent child's life. But now legislation stepped in and passed a law called House Bill 2158, Adrian's Law. This is where it makes it possible to penalize or charge any adult who doesn't report child abuse taking place within a household. Now, guys, I don't think it was just child services that failed Adrian. His mother failed him. His father failed him. The law failed him. Any one of them could have changed something in this little boy's life, and he would still be with us on this earth. But my heart goes out for Adrian, his sister, and his grandmother, and I hope that one day they find peace knowing that their angel will never have to endure the pain that he went through ever again. On that note, guys, until next time, stay blessed.